Okay, welcome back to mrumrocks. In lesson 7, we're going to do a couple of things. First of all, we're going to tie up a loose end back that I should have done in lesson 6, but I kind of ran out of time. Most of this lesson, though, is going to be once that it's going to be about having the turrets track where the mouse is and then firing bullets when I click the mouse. So those are two things that I'll set up. Eventually, the turrets won't follow the mouse. They'll follow the enemies as the enemy comes out on stage. But since we haven't created the enemies yet, we'll do that next. But this lesson, let's go ahead and start by adding something right here. The problem is that I don't know when I'm setting a turret, and so what can happen is when I run the program, I can click on the tiles and I can get more than one dragon attached to my mouse at a time, and I want to change that. So I click on the pink guy, he shows up, blue guy, he shows up, green guy, he shows up, and now all three are attached in the same place. So that's a problem. However, there's an easy fix. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a Boolean variable called setting turret, and this is false because when the program starts running, I'm not setting the turret, so that's going to be false. Now, when I come into initialize turret, I'm going to say if, and I'll say setting turret. If that turret is being set, then I'm just simply going to return immediately. I don't want to do anything, so I'll just say return. I don't have to return anything. I just hit return and I break out of this altogether. However, if setting turret is false, which it will be the first time I come in here, I'll go ahead and set setting turret equal to true. So that's going to not allow me to come back into this loop, because every time I come back in, while setting turret is true, I'll come into this point, and so I can click on this multiple times, and the only time I'm going to come in is the first time when setting turret is equal to false. So now, remember, I only go on to initialize turret when I've clicked on the tile. I'm calling this from where I click on the tile. I'm sending the parameter I, which is going to tell me which turret number. Or actually, I'm going to send in the parameter tn, which is turret number. I say which turret number I've got. And so after I've done all of this, while I'm in this drop listener, when I invoke the drop listener, so I'm listening for that, I invoke it, what I'll do is I will set setting turret back equal to false. And this way, when I click on, so I click originally, setting turret is false. I come in here, it's set to true. It's going to stay attached. I set the mouse location controller so the dragon clicks to my mouse. If I click on another dragon, it's going to come in here. Since setting turret is true, I won't come back in here. And then, after I click to set the turret onto the play area, then I reset this as true, so I'm ready to set another turret. Let's see if this works out okay. And if I've placed all these things in the right places, I think it looks pretty good. So I click over here, and if I click this guy, he's done. But if I click on different guys now, notice that I don't get any more turrets. So what I need to do is change this from true to false. And so at that point, now that this guy has changed to false, if I come back, so every time I click on a turret, okay, so now that's true, it changes to false. So now when I click back on this guy, I click him. But if I click on this guy, before I click on the stage, setting turret doesn't hit false, it stays true, so I don't click on this guy again. Now it's changing it back to false, so I can click on a new guy, and so on and so forth. Now these turrets aren't changing rotation yet, so let's go ahead and do that next, and we'll go ahead and start that in our next segment. Okay, now that I've got my setting turret situation set up here, I say if setting turret is true, return. If it's not true, I set it to true until I click on the stage. Next, I want to change my turret. And the way that I'm going to change my turret is, now remember, this is the generic turret class, so all of my turrets, 1 through 5, are going to share this code, and I'm going to add a frame listener. So I can use the keyword this if I want to, and I can say add listener, and the listener that I'm going to add is going to be a frame listener, so I'll say new frame listener, and notice that it adds this code for me. I need a semicolon here, it does not add that. but it adds all this. And so what this is that to the frame listener, every time I enter a new frame, it will invoke this function, and this is the target is whatever I'm adding. So the this in this case refers to the turret. So every turret, every time I enter the frame, it will invoke this. So whatever code I put in here is going to be called every time I enter a frame. And so what I want to do is I'm simply, when I place the turret on the stage, it's going to have this little listener, and it's going to use this moment. Remember, I'm going to hit about 30 frames a second. So 30 times a second, every turret on the stage is going to call this code. And the target is whatever I have the listener attached to. Since I have it attached to this, the target in this case is going to be my turret. And I will tell it to face towards a particular direction. Now, I said before, I think, that I was going to have it face the mouse, but for the sake of simplicity right now, what I want to do is I'm going to have it face the center of the stage. So if I simply said parent dot width, what I'm trying to do here is tell it to go to the width, and we'll divide that by 2, so that'll be the center of the width. And then I'll do the same thing over here, parent dot height, and we'll go ahead and divide that by 2. But this is not going to work, because what we need to do here is use the getters. And so replace parent with the getter. So that's going to be get parent. Replace this guy. So get parent and get width divided by 2. I'll do the same thing here. Get height and get parent. And so the concept is we're going to take the width of the parent divided by 2, the width of the height, but we're going to use these getters to get that information. And then I'm going to add one little bit. I'm going to say target set rotation. And inside set rotation, I'm going to get target dot get rotation. And that's good to go. So at this point, if I were to run my program, I'm going to find out that not only do I have the appropriate dragon appear, or the dragon turret, I should say, appear, he's following mouse location. Wherever I move now, notice that this dragon is facing the center right here. And so that's good. Later on, when I add enemies, I'll have it change. So they're not only going to face an enemy, but they'll happen to face the closest enemy, whichever enemy is closest to my object. I don't have a turret 5 for some reason, so I just put in turret 4, and he's not oriented in the right direction. But that's it. Now I'm going to change it so that we'll go ahead and add bullets, and that'll come up in the next segment. Okay, now in the last segment of this video, what we're going to do is add a bullet, and the bullet's just going to come out every time. Once the turret is placed on the play area, every time I enter the frame, I'm going to initiate a bullet, which is going to be way too fast, but we'll slow it down in the next lesson. But just so that we get this out, I'm going to create inside my frame listener. So I've added a listener. It's a frame listener. The target every frame gets reoriented, sorry, the tower in every frame gets reoriented towards the center right now because there are no enemies. And what I'll do here is I'm simply going to create a method called fire bullet. So this again is inside of my turret class, and my turret class is going to handle the firing of the bullets. And so eventually what I'll do is when the turrets, or when the enemies get close enough to the turret will know which is the closest enemy, and he's simply going to fire at the closest enemy. So to create this method, it says create method fire bullet. I can put that right down here, but to save time, I have simply copied and pasted. I'm going to put it between the end of my constructor method and before the end of my class, and I'll paste that in, and this is what the method looks like. Now you notice there's a couple of things missing. First of all, it says final bullet B create bullet. This method doesn't exist and this class doesn't exist, so I'll have to create both of those. And what this method is going to do is it's going to set the rotation of the bullet to the same as the rotation of the turret. So whatever direction the turret is pointing, my bullet will be pointing in that same direction. I have constant movement controller C. I'm going to add that to my bullet. So I have B, which is my bullet. I'm going to add my controller, which is my constant mover controller I've created right up here, and then I snap anchor to B, so I'm going to snap it to the same location. This line of code I think I'll leave out for now so we can see what this does differently, but what that's going to do is orient the bullet so when it's placed on the stage, it's not being placed in the middle of the turret, it's being placed sort of at the outer edge of the turret. And notice I'm used add sibling. So the reason I want B and C to be siblings, this is the turret. B then is what I'm adding. B is going to be a sibling of the turret. That means they're going to have the same parent, which means they're going to be placed in the same play area, sort of with equal status, let's say. And so now let's create these other things that I have to create. First of all, I need to create the bullet, and so I'm going to say, just hover over it, create class bullet pops up, and again, this is going to be a G-sprite, very similar to what we did before, so I'm going to set this up as a sprite. There's my G-sprite, and I say finish, and now this class is ready to go. What I need to do here is I'm going to add the default constructor, and as before, I'm going to, in the super class, I want to add an image. And so I'll have to pass this in, and the image that I'm going to create is of type image. So I say image with a capital I, image with lowercase I, and now this guy looks good to go, except I still, as before, I need to import that. Once he's all set up, I can just go ahead and hit Control-Shift-F, and Eclipse will format that for me. And now I am ready to go ahead and get this guy started. The one other thing I should do, maybe even at this point, would be to add a certain type of listener. And so the listener that is really important for bullets is that when my bullet leaves the play area, or actually the entire root area, what I want to do is remove him. And so I can add a new boundary, let's see, boundary removal. Oh, let's just have it type it in for me. A boundary removal listener, and that guy is good to go. Okay, good. So I'll leave it there. What this means is that when a bullet goes outside the bounds of the game, it's automatically going to be removed, which is important because if I'm shooting thousands of bullets, I don't want them existing forever. Your game will crash. So, having done that, I've got my bullet. Notice that red line, but I don't have this guy called create bullet. And so I need to create a couple of abstract classes. So I'll say public abstract, and this guy is going to create a bullet, so it needs to return a bullet, and I'll call the method create bullet, and this guy will simply create a bullet for me. Okay, the next guy is going to be public again, also abstract, and this abstract is going to return a double, and the double that it's going to return will be for get bullet speed. And so the reason we're doing this is that we want each turret to manage a particular kind of bullet and a particular speed, and we're going to code that into each of the turrets, but by putting these method signatures in the abstract class turret, it tells my game that I have to create these classes. So turret 1 and turret 2 and through turret 5 have to have these. Now they don't have them yet, so I should get a bunch of red X's when I do this, but create bullet again is going to be a method. And so now notice over here, turret 2 through turret 1 through turret 5 all have red X's. Let's see why. Get bullet speed. Oh, I didn't finish this. Let's put the word speed in here. Okay. And so now that guy goes away, but this is all fine, but what I don't have is, let's say for instance in turret 1, this guy says, hey, I don't have these methods constructed, so I can simply say add unimplemented methods, and it puts them in for me. Now the return type is not right yet, but that's okay. I'm going to say, let's say public return, what I need to return here is a new bullet, and since this is, I'm going to have bullet 1 through 5 eventually, but right now I just have bullet. What I need to do is I need to, remember over here in bullet, I am sending in an image, I'm sending that to my super, and so when I create the bullet, I've got to create that image. And so just like before, I'm going to say image cache, and the image cache is going to receive in, oh, I'm sorry, it's going to say dot get image, And the file name is just a string, but again, over here I've created inside bullets, I've got one bullet right now, it's B1, but it's in this folder called bullets, so I need to give it the folder name, which is bullets, and then the file name, which is b1.png. That's my string that's going to take in this bullet. When I create a new bullet, it's going to pass it to the constructor for bullet 1, actually for bullet. All I have right now are bullets. I don't have bullet 1 through bullet 5, but that's okay. That will work. Actually, the only thing a bullet's going to have, it's not going to have any other functionality than this, so I'm not sure that we need to do anything more than that. For turret 1, we'll create bullet 1. Eventually, for turret 2, we'll create bullet 2, which is just going to be the PNG. Nothing else we need to do there, and so we don't need to have really much else going on. We're not going to create different classes for each of the bullets. We'll just create a generic bullet class. Okay, having done that, I can go back to turret now. This guy's all set up, and he is ready to go. Let's see what happens right now. Notice that I'm adding B. I've got a constant movement controller set to B, and then I add B, and so if I run the program right now, it says, oh, obviously I still have problems in these. Let me stop this, I'll do these, and then come back and finish the video. Okay, so I went ahead and added the same information to these other different turrets. So for instance, if I look in turret 5, notice I really have exactly the same thing. I just copied and pasted from turret 1. I'm just putting bullet 1 in each of these for now, but what I want to notice is that this is going to fire a bullet every time I come into a frame, so that is 30 bullets every frame. And if I hit this guy right now, notice that I come in here, I click on this guy, and he is sending way too many bullets. Also, the bullets are appearing right on top of him. So 2 quick changes I'm going to make is I'm going to change the bullet speed. Let's go back to turret 1. I'm going to change the bullet speed so the turret, or the bullet's moving a little bit faster. Let's say I change that to 30. And I'm going to change back on turret. Remember, we commented out this line just to see the difference. Right now the bullets are appearing exactly in the same location as the turret, and so I need to move that a little bit, and so I take half the width plus 20 of my turret. I get the rotation of the turret, and I'm moving it at that. So I'm moving it on a particular angle, whatever direction the turret is pointing, so the bullet will be set to the center of the turret and then 20 units off the center in the direction he's facing. And so that is going to add this nice little kind of effect where at this point, did I not save that? He's going to give me a different location. So now he's moving. You can see though that I'm shooting 30 bullets, and if I hit the tilde, frames per second is 30, and it shows me how many different things I have on here. I've only got 42 objects, so even as I call out more guys, this guy's again shooting low. Now I'm having more objects appear, but the thing is that once they come off the edge of the stage, they are going to disappear. So that's it for lesson 7. Bye-bye.